Hello, my name is Michaelsen. I'm the Instructional Technologist here at the College of Medicine, Phoenix. I'm presenting today on effective independent learning modules, how to produce them, and how to distribute them as part of the 2015 Technology in the Classroom series. Today we're going to be talking about what is an ILM, what are the goals of ILM or Independent Learning Module learning, how to achieve those goals, some basic technical production tips and visual design tips, as well as how to use PowerPoint tools effectively, how to edit your ILM, and how to maintain compliance in terms of HIPAA and in terms of copyright and fair use. We'll also go over how to distribute your ILM on Panopto or Vimeo. And this is a general overview. I've produced other ILMs that talk about specifically how to use Panopto, how to use Camtasia, and how to do editing. This is an overview if you're just getting started with ILM production, about all the different steps and best practices involved. So an ILM stands for Independent Learning Module, and most commonly this has been a video with voice over PowerPoint. People have been using voice over PowerPoint for several years for lecture supplementation and lecture replacement. These days we're mostly talking about video files, but technically an ILM could be any sort of learning module that a student consumes outside of the classroom. I mentioned lecture supplementation and lecture replacement. Supplementation just means something that the student watches before a lecture, before an in-classroom, in-person lecture to prepare for the lecture, or they could watch it afterwards. Lecture replacement is a full replacement for an in-classroom lecture. This is pretty common with many of our faculty here at the College of Medicine. When they can't attend a scheduled lecture that we'd like them to give, they produce an ILM, an Independent Learning Module video, and the students watch the video either just before or during the protected lecture time. The goals of ILM learning include flexibility, which is that students can watch these lessons whenever they want to, even late at night, and they never have to miss a lesson just because they weren't in the classroom. Individualization of instruction, which means that students can learn at their own pace without waiting for others, which is what commonly happens in a lecture-style classroom. Focus on attention of a specific topic rather than a broad multiple-hour lecture. ILMs are best when they focus on a very specific topic. So the flipped classroom and flipped teaching model is a pretty hot topic these days. It just means that you as the teacher convey basic facts and concepts rather than during a lecture. You do it via an ILM. The students watch it before the lecture time, and then you use your valuable in-class time for things like discussion, question answering, and applying concepts. And structured teaching means that you can edit out mistakes in ILMs that you normally couldn't during a lecture. It also allows you to bring in external content and other resources to make a richer, more structured, more organized learning experience. So to achieve the goals of ILM teaching, it's important to take enough time to edit out your mistakes and to edit in any third-party resources that you need to include in your teaching. Keep your topic focused. Don't use ILMs to cover an entire subject area. Just focus on a specific topic. Limit the length of your ILMs. If you're doing a lecture supplementation, something the students watch outside of a class that you'll be lecturing in, keep it to about 20 minutes or less. If you're doing a full-on lecture replacement, you can go up to 60 minutes, but beyond that, students and anybody really loses their ability to watch an instructional video longer than about an hour. Of course, if you have more content than that, you can always split up your presentation into separate ILMs, and this may actually be better for maintaining a good teaching structure. If you do split up your presentation, make sure to maintain a standalone structure so that the videos make sense when watched in any order. Some basic technical production steps would be to use a high-quality microphone. We have a high-quality mic, it's called a blue snowball mic, available for your use here in the recording lab on the 5th floor. We also have a quiet, echo-free room, but if you're recording in your office, just be sure to shut the doors and windows and don't have any external noise making. It gets picked up on the microphone very easily, especially if you're using an external mic. If you're using Panopto, be sure to record at the highest possible resolution and frame rate. In the Panopto window, down at the bottom, there's a section that allows you to define your resolution, bit rate, and frame rate. Just make sure that all of these are up as high as they can go. If you're using PowerPoint, be sure to use the widescreen 16:9 slide size. This is the default in PowerPoint 2013, but if you're using an older version of PowerPoint, you may find that your slides default to size 4:3. It's okay to record at 4:3, but 16:9 is the size of all TVs and computer monitors these days. Your students will most likely be watching on a 16:9 monitor, so you might as well change the PowerPoint slide size to match. You can do this pretty easily. Just click on the Design tab in PowerPoint, and then you'll see a slide size selector. Just choose widescreen or anything that says 16:9 and push OK, and you'll have a widescreen presentation just like you're looking at right here. Be sure to leave space for editing at the beginning and end. That makes it easier at the editing stage to insert things like titles, transitions, and fade outs. And when you're producing your ILM, use some notes or a script to keep yourself on track, but be sure to speak naturally. Don't speak word for word from a piece of paper. It's easier for people to listen to someone who's speaking naturally, as if they were having a conversation with someone right next to them. Basic visual design guidelines to keep in mind: use text and graphics that fill the screen and will be visible if your ILM is watched on screens as small as an iPhone. Don't put more than 7 lines of text on a slide. There are exceptions to this, but it's best for comprehension and for people who are watching not to include more than 7 lines of text. Use a uniform, simple template. That's what I've got here. Just a few colors, a simple background, and you can use branding if it's appropriate. If you're teaching for the College of Medicine Phoenix, you can throw a College of Medicine Phoenix logo up in the corner. Stay away from crazy fonts. I'm just using a simple Arial font for this presentation. That's good, especially if you're distributing your PowerPoint to people on other computers. If you're giving out the actual PowerPoint file, fonts sometimes don't carry over to other computers. Best to stick to simple fonts that would be accessible on all computers. And then just be mindful of color blindness. Some people can't tell the difference or can't actually see the difference between red and green. It's okay to use colors like red and green in your presentation. Just don't give them semantic meaning that would be lost if someone was unable to perceive the differences between colors. If you're giving a PowerPoint presentation, one of the little gems in PowerPoint is the pen tool. This can be accessed by right-clicking and choosing pointer options and pen. You can also get to it down here in the corner. I'm moving my mouse down to the corner here where there's a little button. This is in PowerPoint 2013 that if I click, it brings up the pen tool, and this allows me to draw things on the screen. Of course, I'm using a mouse here. I can't be very precise, but it allows you to do basic things like drawing circles and arrows and lines on things. It's good especially if you have imagery like an X-ray or any other sort of medical imagery that you need to annotate on the fly, and it will be picked up by screen recorders like Panopto and Camtasia. Also, if you include animations or videos, try and keep them to a minimum or keep them short. If you do have longer videos, you can actually edit those in directly in the Camtasia timeline. You'll want to review some of my other ILMs on using Camtasia or Panopto to learn how to do that. So when you misspeak, which is going to happen when you're producing an ILM, leave a few seconds pause, and this will make editing easier when you correct yourself. If you see on the timeline down here, this is what a Camtasia timeline looks like. When the speaker pauses, the audio waveform here drops to 0. That is a good visual cue for you later on when you're doing edits. You're able to quickly visually identify the areas where long pauses were taken. And if you're following this tip of pausing when you misspeak, it's an easy way to find those mistakes and quickly jump to them and correct them. If you do need to correct yourself, go back and start the sentence over. So correct yourself with full sentences. Don't talk over a slide transition. And you'll want to leave time at the beginning and end for editing. There's a few compliance issues we have to keep in mind when producing ILMs that include external content. you only can use multimedia that you have a right to use. Now, one of the things that lots of people in education know about is fair use. This is a concept that says that copyrighted works like images and sounds and videos can be used in curriculum-based instructional materials without any prior copyright clearance, but there are limitations to this. It's not unlimited. You can't use a copyrighted item for more than 2 years after the first time you use it. So if you're planning on producing an ILM that you want to use for a couple years, more than 2 years, you'll have to get copyright clearance for any copyright material that's used in it. If you're using something that has a video or motion picture material in it, you can't use more than 3 minutes or 10%, whichever is less. If you're using a graphic or a photograph, you can't use more than 5 images from a single artist or 15 images from a single collective published work. This would include textbooks. And any time that you use an image or any copyrighted material for that matter, you need to identify the author and identify that it's a copyrighted work. If you're using text material, don't quote things longer than 1,000 words or 10% of the total material, and don't include more than 30 seconds of a piece of music. If you are using copyrighted material under a fair use statute, you should include some sort of notification, such as a line somewhere in your ILM that says some content is included under the fair use exemption of U.S. copyright law. Compliance with protected health information is also important. Keep in mind that PHI isn't just medical records, but this includes any imagery, audio, or video recordings of patients in a healthcare setting. You must be able to produce absolute proof of patient-informed consent if you're using imagery, audio, or video clips of actual patients. And if the patient is easily identified, you also need an actual release if they're personally identifiable. You'll want to talk to the Media Services Department here at the College of Medicine for more information about how to get patient actor releases. So planning for the distribution of your ILM is important. If you're doing a lecture replacement, you can post it the day before, but try to aim for at least 24 hours before the lecture is scheduled, just to give students enough time to access and view the lecture during the time when it was scheduled. If you're doing lecture supplementation, in other words, a flipped classroom model of ILM, post the ILM several days before, just keeping in mind that some students may not necessarily have time to watch a lecture supplement the day before, especially if they have busy schedules. They may want to watch a few days before they come to your lecture. Go ahead and plan to design and script your ILM at least 2 weeks before the scheduled viewing time, and be sure to record and produce it, or at least start the production process about a week before. Sometimes there's glitches, sometimes the computer has problems, sometimes Panopto has problems, so just to be safe, make sure that you start the production and the recording about a week before the scheduled time. So there's 2 online locations that your ILM video will end up. It could either go onto Panopto, which is most common. This is where we keep all of our curricular content, anything viewed by students and faculty. And this is also a site locked by the NetID, so if it's curricular material that you only want to share with a certain group of U of A students and faculty, it'll end up on Panopto. If you're presenting an ILM and you want to give it to people outside of the U of A community, such as if you're going to a conference or you want to share it with people at your non-university medical practice, that's okay, but we can put it on Vimeo, which is a non-NetID required site. It's similar to YouTube. We have an official account. Just ask me if you're interested in this option. And that about wraps it up. There's my contact information. Call me or email me anytime if you have questions about ILMs. And be sure to locate and watch my other ILMs that describe in more detail how to use some of these systems like Panopto and Camtasia. Thanks very much.